Oh.
What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for another match day preview as Spurs face West Ham at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium on Thursday night. 8:15 kickoff live in front of the Amazon cameras. We're here to do the match preview and predicted lineup. But let's get straight into the match preview, I guess. And Sim, how are you feeling coming into this one?
I would say, obviously, we're 4 games out of win, so it's very important that we definitely take all 3 points in this game. So that does put a bit of pressure, in my opinion, on the game for us to turn things around, because you need to get that winning feeling back. I think you heard Kulusevski talk about, yes, we're playing well at the moment. Last 2 games, Villa and City, we have put in 2 good performances. We still didn't get the win. Obviously, we got a great point away at City, but Decky said after that game, it's all well and good playing well, but we have to get the wins now, and we have to get back on track.
I kind of feel like this is like a really perfect opportunity. This is like the kind of game where there's a really good opportunity for us to get back to winning ways, because there'll be an extra kind of incentive because it's a London derby. The atmosphere will have an extra kick to it as well. So for me, I feel like it could be the kind of perfect opportunity for us to get back to winning ways, isn't it?
I'm not disagreeing. I think West Ham, the way they play, people might argue that, you know, the way they tried to set up and frustrate you and going to try and sit in a low block and restrict you, and they got some quick players on the counter of Bowen and Kudus and, good quality players in Paquetá. Obviously, it's not going to be an easy game. They will make things difficult, but I think in a weird way, if they let us play our football a bit like how Villa did, and we create a similar amount of chances as we did in that game, I think there's no reason to believe we can't go and win this game, and we can't put those chances away and believe that we're not going to miss the amount of chances that we did against Aston Villa, and hopefully we'll create more chances than we did against Man City. But we do need to win, so I do think there's a little bit of pressure. Obviously, if we don't win, it's not the end of the world, but I do think there's a little bit of pressure to end that winless run. You don't want to make it 5 wins in a row without a win. I think that would be wouldn't be great. So, but I am confident. Because even though we haven't been winning in the last 4, I'm looking at the way we're playing, and apart from the Wolves game, and obviously a lot of the game against Chelsea will be down to 9 men, I think we have been playing well. I think Ange has found a few solutions to especially a few of the problems we're having on the ball, especially against Wolves. We're definitely looking a lot brighter, a lot sharper, a lot more likely to create chances. Looking a lot more likely to open teams up. And then you add into the fact that we are going to have Romero back for this game, which hopefully should solve some of the defensive problems we've been having over the last few games. Having Everson and Davis, they've done okay, but obviously they've had massive problems, especially communicating, I think, between the two. I don't think there's really been a leader between those two in the back. Yeah. I think they've allowed way too many chances, especially having a few issues playing out from the back, especially on Emerson's side. So I think having Romero back is a massive plus, and I think it's not going to solve every problem, but all of a sudden, you look at our back 5, I know Van der Ven it makes a massive difference having that recovery pace, but that is 4 of our back 5 available, isn't it? Yeah. So you have to say that should hopefully go a long way to helping us out in solving those problems. And also, as well, no Antonio for West Ham, I'm a lot less worried about him bullying Davis than I am about whoever they are going to play up front.
Yeah, but on the flip side of that, like you mentioned before, if it is Jared Bowen that plays in the number 9 role, there's much more opportunity to him to catch up that high line and get him behind. So it's a different kind of threat.
It's a different threat, but if I'm Davis, I'm more comfortable playing against Bowen than I am in Antonio. They know if Antonio's there, they can go direct to him and they can stick him on Davis and he can bully Davis. Bowen's a bit different. Will they lack that focal point, which I know is very important to how West Ham play, especially under David Moyes.
It'd be interesting if they go for maybe Mohamed Kudus in the number 9, because he's that bit more physical and he's got that pace as well. Yeah, so he could offer that dual threat, that maybe half of Antonio and half of Bowen.
Kind of. What I would say is he hasn't played that role for West Ham yet, so it can go 2 ways. One, you could say, will he be kind of getting used to that role in mid-game kind of thing? But another way you could look at it is it could spring a surprise, because are we planning for Kudus up front? Probably not. We're probably seeing if you're studying how West Ham have played this season, you're not going to be preparing for Kudus up front. You're going to be probably preparing for Bowen or Danny Ings, who played against Burnley, who obviously hasn't been playing very well at the moment.
I'd love Danny Ings to play, not going to lie.
Yeah, that would be good. So, but having Romero back as well, him having that front foot defensive ability as well, which we've definitely been missing over the past few weeks. You know, there's been a lack of proactive defending. You saw that goal, the second goal we conceded against Villa. There was just lack of people being proactive, everyone reacting to passes around them, no one sticking their foot in. The second goal against Man City, Emerson standing around waiting for things to happen rather than being proactive. And for all Romero's faults, you know that's not what he's going to do. He's going to get involved, he's going to get stuck in, and he's going to try and win the ball and be proactive about his defending. So whatever way you slice it, having him back in is a massive plus.
It can't be understated how much of an upgrade this is. Cuti Romero coming in for an out of position Emerson Royale, where you look at, since we've had all these injuries since Chelsea, Emerson, he just hasn't cut it at whether he's been at left back, whether he's been at centre back. I mean, he's done a job in certain moments of the games, but ultimately, when he come in against Wolves at left back, he just wasn't impacting that inverted role and really being good enough on the ball. And when he was at centre back against Manchester City, we were very lucky not to concede more goals than we actually did. The amount of chances he was giving away playing out the back was shocking. So to have Romero back in the side is just night and day, and a massive, massive, massive plus for us. And I'm so happy to have him back. And that, like what you said is absolutely spot on, that proactive defending that we've been missing since he's been out. And he's the epitome of pretty much proactive defending. So I'm so excited to have him back. You're looking at the form coming into it. Obviously, Spurs on. It's strange when you look at Tottenham and West Ham, right? Because West Ham are actually getting some results recently, but not playing too well. Spurs are not getting the results, but I would say that Spurs are playing better than West Ham at the moment.
Yeah, it's a weird one. West Ham, I've watched their last few games against Burnley. Extremely lucky to get the result there. You maybe look at that game and think it was fairly similar. If you didn't watch the game, maybe you think it's similar to maybe how Spurs played against Sheffield United, creating loads of chances, but it kind of waited till the end. But it wasn't like that at all. Yeah. West Ham were not in that game. They were so lucky to get even to 1-0 come the 90th minute, and then obviously they came up with 2 moments of quality right at the end, ending up getting the win, a really undeserved win at the end in a performance which was shocking. I thought against Palace, they weren't great. They got the point, but it wasn't a game where they deserved the win. I think a point was probably a fair result, but it was at home to Palace, you expect to be at least putting a performance which was worthy of a victory, even if you don't win. So to only, be level pegging with them, especially with the poor form Palace is in, is disappointing. Forest at home, I remember watching that game. We were in the studio watching that game, and again, they scored from a few set pieces, but very lucky to end up with the win in that game. They were very fortunate. I think they scored late on with a set piece. In that game, Forest were more than a match for them. So I do think in their recent form, it's maybe papered over some of the cracks in their performances. But to be fair to Moyes, the way they do play kind of means that even when they're not playing well, there's always a chance they do get results because they're very strong from set pieces, because they can score against run or play with their counter-attacks. In a way, yes, that's a negative because they've got such good players, should they be playing like that. But on the positive side, a bit like even last season, like Spurs under Conte, yes, we're playing rubbish, but because of the way we play, even when we play bad, we can still get results. And so that's always the stuff that you've got to balance West Ham. And look, they're going through a good run at the moment. And on the flip side, you look at the Tottenham form, as you said, no win in 4. But as I said, the Villa game played very well, created loads of chances and just came on the wrong end of it. Man City, obviously, last game, we played really well in that second half, got a really good result. But the 2 performances before that, yeah, you can say Chelsea, we imploded and it was very bad, and Wolves, we were pretty atrocious in that game. But I think on the balance of it, I actually do think we are probably still playing better than West Ham, even though the results aren't showing it.
Yeah, 100%. And, it is, I kind of see this a bit different to like maybe a Spurs Arsenal, where Spurs Arsenal, it's usually like whoever's at home gets the more favourable result in the last 10 years, I would say, as a kind of rule. Whereas Spurs West Ham is a bit different. I know we've got the better of them in recent years or in recent times, in the last 4 games, 3 wins and a draw. But no matter what form kind of West Ham are coming into this game, they usually put in a really good display, don't they? So I'm looking at their team and I'm looking at the way they're setting up and I'm looking at their frailties at the moment, and I'm thinking, all right, we can really get at this team and we can really have a dominating performance and a really convincing win. But then you look at the West Ham teams that usually show up in these games and it doesn't correlate to the form they're on always.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Although what I would say is I think past 4 games at home against West Ham, I think we've won 3 and drawn 1. And the only draw was the Lanzini moment.
Didn't we lose our first 2 games at the stadium against them?
First.
Only the first.
The second one we won.
Oh, we won.
We beat them. That was during COVID, so it's always difficult to remember those times. And the Lanzini moment. And then I think we're on a stretch of 2 consecutive wins at home against them. I think Son scoring in both of them as well. So I do think our recent form at home is definitely in our favour against West Ham.
Actually, one of them might have been a friendly.
3 wins in a row. Yeah, okay. So I think...
one of them was the cup.
One of them was a cup.
Scored.
That's right. So I think we're actually on good form at home, even though the narrative is West Ham always step up and have a better performance in this game. Recently at home at the Tottenham Stadium, maybe that hasn't suggested that totally.
What history would suggest maybe in the last 10 years or something?
10 years. Maybe over a longer stretch, but definitely recent form is definitely in our favour. You can see it on screen right now. 3 wins in a row at home. And also I just look at how West Ham are set up and how they like to play. And I think, I think most of the time actually this season we've had a lot of trouble is when we play a very good team who like to attack us. I think actually when teams can kind of give as good as they get, that's when we've struggled. When the team just tries to sit back and frustrate us, by and large, we've done okay. We've had struggles, but we've ended up coming away with victories by and large in those games. Maybe not against Wolves, that we didn't do that, but I think a lot of the times this season we have. So
the only one that was a real frustration was the Sheffield United game, really, when they just sat back, 11 men behind the ball at all times, and we struggled to break them down, but we finally did it. We found the solutions right at the end of the game.
We did, but we also had enough chances before that to score as well, especially in the first half. It should never have been 1-0 Sheffield United. We had more than enough chances to be winning that game. So you just got to... In football, you can never really predict what's going to happen. You can never know. Who knows? Maybe we miss a load of chances and maybe West Ham go up the other end, score a deflection, we lose 1-0. That can happen in football and you can't legislate for everything. But I'm going to bank on the fact if we can create as many chances as we did against a team like Villa and we can look as creative as we did in that game, plus you add in Romero and hopefully we're going to hopefully have less defensive problems than we have been having recently. Not to say all of them are going to be disappeared, but if we can just have less and concede less chances as we did, I've got no reason why not to be confident going into this game that we can really beat them and end our winless run.
My biggest worry coming into this game is set pieces, and also not just set pieces, but the quality on the ball that James Ward-Prowse has to maybe find a Bowen or a Mohamed Kudus in behind. I think those 2 threats are probably my biggest worries coming into this game. I think we have seen in recent weeks that potentially we have been a bit poor defending corners, defending defensive free kicks and stuff like that. And with the quality that West Ham have, with James Ward-Prowse, with that delivery, with kind of the aerial threats that they do have, Thomas Souček and the rest of them, how much of a worry is that for you?
Yeah, it's definitely a worry, considering against Villa we conceded from a free kick, against Man City we conceded from a free kick, albeit it was an own goal, but they still gave us a lot of trouble from those situations. So West Ham give any team trouble from set pieces, not just us. They're that good. They're one of the better set piece teams in the league. So that's always going to be a concern. That's always going to be something we're going to have to make sure we're not giving away any stupid free kicks. In fact, if memory serves me right, Lo Celso has actually given away both those free kicks that led to goals against us, and actually they were pretty needless as well. So we just got to make sure we're not conceding too many free kicks, and then I think we just got to make sure we're dominating the ball as much, just so we're keeping West Ham away from possibility of getting too many corners as well. If we can do that, limit them from those opportunities, I'm confident that if we have a long spell of possession and we play that we've been playing, the football we've been playing last couple of games, we keep the ball really well, looking intense, Kulusevski and Lo Celso are picking the ball up in the pockets, then I think we can negate that threat. But look, if we give away too many stupid set pieces, we'll be asking for it. That's true.
What I really want to see is, on the back of that second half performance against Manchester City, it's just to come out the blocks firing and really fast and show that confidence that we did show in the second half against Man City. Take no prisoners. Just go absolutely gung-ho and go for their throats from the first minute. And I'm not sure they're going to be able to handle that if we do that. And We were speaking to Nicky from West Ham Fan TV yesterday, and he was saying, you know, there are cracks at the back for West Ham. The defensive frailties are there for all to see, and that's pretty strange when I'm thinking about it, because that's what I kind of associate West Ham and David Moyes for, having a really solid defensive setup and being able to hurt you on the counter attack. And if those defensive frailties are there on Thursday night, tomorrow night at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and we do go for their throats in the first few minutes and hopefully get a few goals in the opening 20-25 minutes, I mean, it could turn into a bit of a party atmosphere, couldn't it?
Yeah, I hope so. If we can get an early goal, I mean, although to be fair, I think it's been 4 games in a row we've scored the opening goal, and we haven't been able to hang on to it. So you can't speak too soon. But I really believe in this kind of game, if we can open them up early, which we have been doing recently, and we can get early opportunities, score a goal in the opening exchanges, that would really allow us to settle down. And when the home crowd starts, you know, getting loud, and 100% agree, I think we can really take the game to them, and I think it can be a really should be, you know what Ange is going to bring, entertaining football. We're always going to go for it. We're always going to go for the throat and attack. So that's the thing. That's one thing you can count on. And if West Ham aren't perfect defensively, 100%, there's a possibility of a few goals for us there.
Do you think that it's like kind of the excuses are over now if we do lose this game from certain fans? Because Romero is back in the side. Davis has been performing really well. We've got a midfield trio now that has played the last couple of games that we're all happy with, that we're all performing well. No excuses to lose this game, really.
Look, it depends how the game goes. As I say, there's no excuses. Look, there's no excuses to have a performance like the Wolves game. I completely agree with that. If we come out and we're not creating any chances, or we're struggling to create, then there's a tactical problem. But if we have a game like against Villa and we're creating loads of chances and we somehow end up losing, that's just one you got to take it on the chin. That's just how it goes sometimes in football.
You know what I mean? We can't go 5 games without win.
100%. You can never predict what's going to happen in football. You can get really unlucky. Who knows what's going to happen? Maybe they get a penalty, which is never a penalty, and they just end up winning. Who knows what's going to happen in football? So you have to always take the context of the game into account. But in terms of there's no excuse to have a poor performance, and I completely agree with that, and that's what I'm looking at.
If you bring up the West Ham predicted lineup coming into this game, only one injury it looks like for Mikel Antonio, which is actually big for us because he always has a good game against us, always seems to score against us. But when you're looking at that team, Agard, I think Zuma's out for this game, isn't he? So if Zuma does play, that's a massive plus for them, to be honest, for Agard and Zuma, who are a really good defensive partnership, to be fair. Soufal, who I think after maybe a poor season last year has stepped it up again this year. He seems to be doing a lot better. Emerson Palmieri at left back. Ward-Prowse and Alvarez have done really well this season, in my opinion, especially Ward-Prowse. He come in and just goal contribution after goal contribution after goal contribution. And, you know, I said it before about the quality that he has in his delivery. Alvarez as well has stepped in to the Premier League really well, really top defensive midfielder. And then this is where we're going to come under problems. This is their front line, you know, Mohamed Kudus, Lucas Paquetá, Jared Bowen, and Thomas Souček as well on the receiving end of those deliveries from Ward-Prowse is the danger. So if we could kind of keep those 4 quiet, then I think we should be all right.
Yeah, watching West Ham, and I've been looking into kind of like the average positions they have, and obviously when they have Antonio fit, how their team usually looks is Antonio and Bowen are quite far up, Emerson and Soufal very wide, and then you've got all the other players. You got the 2 centre mids. You got Paquetá, Ward-Prowse. Alvarez is almost like another centre back at times, / very deep in the number 6. You got Ward-Prowse and Paquetá kind of more in the centre. You got Souček as well, so they very much like to plug up the central areas. They're not a very wide team when it comes to their width from their wingers. They like to tuck inside. Now Antonio's out, Kudus has kind of been taking that role a bit, so he's a bit more central with Bowen. Then they've got Alvarez, Souček, Ward-Prowse, Paquetá all very central, and you've got Soufal and Emerson providing the width a lot for West Ham. And now I look at Soufal and Emerson, 2 solid fullbacks, but they're definitely fullbacks I look at and think if they're in 1-on-1 situations against Johnson or even Kulu or Gil, I think they'll fancy their chances in a lot of those situations. They're decent fullbacks, but they're not fullbacks where I'm thinking they're going to dominate us out wide if we can get opportunities. Like maybe against City, you had Gvardiol and you had Walker in those positions, and you could struggle a bit more against those. But Emerson and Soufal defensively are not the best. Now, offensively, they're actually pretty decent. When Soufal can get in the final third, he's got a good cross on him. Emerson as well. He's a decent pace. He's got a good pass on him. So they're definitely more threats in when they get forward, and they're quite good on the ball. And I'm not saying they're terrible defensively. They're just not amazing. I don't think they're incredible. So I think if we can isolate them as much as possible, and that's what West Ham like to do in terms of their how they play their fullbacks, especially on the ball. They like them to provide width. I think out wide can be our best source of trying to get joy against this West Ham team. And if they're gonna, and if they're not, if they're not dominating those wide duels, and they're all of a sudden they're forced to bring out Alvarez or Ward-Prowse or Paquetá into the wide areas to help out, that's all that's going to do is leave spaces for Kulusevski and Lo Celso to operate in, and that's exactly what we're looking for. So it's going to be a very interesting tactical battle. Yeah,
it really will. And the star men, or the ones to watch that we've picked out for West Ham, obviously Mohamed Kudus and Jarrod Bowen. After not the greatest season last year, Jarrod Bowen, he's come back into this season absolutely in firing form, unbelievable. And with the likes of Mohamed Kudus and Lucas Paquetá for West Ham, I feel like it's a testament to West Ham and the growth that they've had in the last 3-4 years to be able to acquire players like that.
Definitely, I think the recruitment has been phenomenal. How they got a player like Kudus is beyond me. I think it's a phenomenal signing, and I think he's proved that in the last few weeks as well. Since he's been starting regularly, he's really showing what he's all about. He's a player who was really highly sought after, wasn't he, during the summer window? And I think we're seeing it now. He's got a great left foot. He's so strong. He's really good in one-on-one situations. Probably the best, definitely West Ham's best player when it comes to dribbling. So I think when it comes to them on the counter, he's not a player who necessarily running behind as much. He likes the ball to feet a bit more. Bowen's the opposite. He likes running behind a bit more. Although he's also decent with the ball with his feet, he's much more of a threat when he's running in behind. So I think those are two players who are clearly the biggest threats. And I think those are two players, and Paquetá as well. You saw how Man City wanted him over the summer. I think he's a player of supreme ability as well. But these are players who could easily play, in my opinion, for teams in the top 4, top 5, and wouldn't look out of place. Absolutely. So I think that they've done very well to get them in. The only thing is the way they play. If you're a West Ham fan, you just got to be frustrated with the fact that you've got these great players and you just don't play in a way that probably gets the best out of them. Not to say that the way they play stifles them completely, because they're still doing well. But you just look at how Spurs play. We try to maximise our attacking players as much as possible the way we're playing at the moment, and we try to get them on the ball as much as possible, try to get them playing their football. And at West Ham, it's just a bit, we defend first, we're solid, and then they kind of pick their moments to show their quality. And that's got to be a bit frustrating when you've got players like Kudus, who you just feel like if he touched the ball 2 or 3 times more times than he is during a game, he could just do so much more.
Yeah, but it's also a bit similar, isn't it, to when we had the Contes and the Mourinhos of this world, when we had Kane and Son doing unbelievably well for those. It wasn't a system that was set up for attacking players, but it was a system where top players are still going to flourish.
Definitely, and I'm not saying they can't flourish, but I just think they could they could be doing more. Yeah. I think you got these players who could be doing so much more than they are, and I think Kane and Son thrived, but maybe some of the other players didn't.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
100%.
And that's Kane and Son are that level where you can probably put them in any system and they'll thrive.
But that's what I'm saying, right? Is that top players are going to thrive in any system, and that's what Bowen and Kudus are showing right now.
Yeah, and I think they'll thrive, but I reckon they could be even better
100%.
in a better system.
Yeah, I don't disagree at all. But in terms of Spurs coming into this, like we said, Romero's back, which is a massively welcome return to the team, and we've missed him so much since he's been out. I would like to see Romero just not get sent off this game, at least. We need him for the foreseeable future. But there are a few selection headaches coming into this. We'll get into the predicted lineup in a minute. But in terms of our personal preference, would you like to see Kulusevski stick in his position now with sticking with Bryan Hill on the left? When Bryan Hill did struggle massively against Kyle Walker, he's coming up against another physical fullback in Vladimir Soufal, but it's a different kettle of fish. Kyle Walker's just levels and levels and levels ahead of Soufal. So you mentioned that you think that Bryan Hill could get a bit of spare change out of Soufal.
Definitely more than against Walker, that's for sure.
Yeah,
I'm not saying he's going to like dominate, but I think if he comes up against a player like Soufal, he's definitely going to fancy his chances a lot more than against Walker. I can't remember who played right back. It was Matty Cash who played right back for Villa. And to be fair, in that first half, he was getting a bit of joy out of him, and he was getting something. Second half, he tired, but I think
led to frustration and him clattering Bentancur.
Yeah, maybe, but. Soufal's more of the ilk in terms of physicality as like a Matt Cash. He's not the quickest, he's not the strongest, but he makes the most of what he's got, and he's a good player. But he's not a player where I think Bryan Hill will be scared of. I think for me, I would just keep it for another game, maybe against on Sunday when if he comes up against Trippier, maybe I would think maybe take him out that game and maybe change it up unless he has a blinder against West Ham. But I think just for this game. I know he had a disappointing game, but I would like just to keep that dynamic of Johnson on the right, Kulu and Lo Celso in the centre. That's more important to me, keeping that dynamic together than having Bryan Hill on the left. I just think a consequence of keeping that dynamic is having Bryan Hill on the left. So that's why I'd persist with that. I think we look so creative against Villa. I just wouldn't want to risk changing that up, because if we put Højbjerg in, I'm sure we can still dominate, and I'm sure we can still win the game. But are we going to look as creative if we do that with Højbjerg in the centre, as we will as we have Kulu and Lo Celso? And what's more likely for me of us creating as more chances? Will it be having a Højbjerg there or putting Kulu there? And I just think I would rather stick with Kulu and Lo Celso. And if it doesn't work, you could always put Højbjerg in at half-time like we did against City. But I would just like to just give it another go, just give it another opportunity, because I think with West Ham playing a low block, we're going to have to be as creative as possible. And I think that's our best chance of being creative.
I don't feel that there's a need in this game to play Højbjerg and Bissouma together in the same midfield. Against Newcastle, there could be, more of an argument for it. But in this game, where we should have the majority of the ball, we should be in the ascendancy for the majority of the game, I just want to get our best ball-playing players in the midfield, so we can keep the ball and use it in a really good way. But having said that, if Højbjerg is to come in for this game, I would like to see him come in for Bissouma and not Bryan Hill, in my opinion. I don't think Bissouma has cut it at all since that Liverpool game. Got sent off against Luton. Hasn't really had a good performance since then. But what a better opportunity to get back to form, and at home to West Ham in an atmosphere like that. He's going to have something to prove now, Bissouma. So maybe, Ange will be thinking, we should be sticking with Bissouma because we know what quality he has. We know he's beating himself up with the poor performance that he had at the Etihad and that bad mistake that he did do. But for me, the mistake wasn't the issue with Bissouma, and everyone's going on at me about in the panel show yesterday about Bissouma, you can't just take him out after one mistake. But it's not just one mistake. This is not the reason I would potentially drop him. The reason is because of the string of poor performances. And when we've got a player like Højbjerg, who, whenever he has stepped in, he's done really well for us, and he's performing at a really good level, waiting in the wings, I just think it doesn't send out a great message when a player is performing poorly and doesn't get dropped, really. That's why you have competition for places, really. So I wouldn't mind seeing Højbjerg come in for Bissouma, but if Bissouma does start, I can see why, because of his technical ability and how good he is on the ball, and we need to get him back to full form.
Yeah, I just think if we're going to win the game, I think it's more likely having Bissouma in the team, and we know what he can do, and I think his qualities are much more suited to this kind of game and breaking up that West Ham midfield in the centre than it is Højbjerg. I think you could make a good point. I don't think anyone can argue that Højbjerg is probably in better form than Bissouma right now. So based on that, if it really is a meritocracy and it really is Ange saying whoever's in better form plays, there's definitely a good argument to say Højbjerg should be playing over Bissouma right now. I just think I'm willing to give it one more go in this game for Bissouma to get his form back and try and overcome what has been a poor period for him ever since that red card against Luton. I did think against City he had a very poor first half, but then he did improve in the second half, and he was actually playing pretty well, and then he makes that mistake, and obviously that cost us a goal, and that's what people will remember. But I just think, for me, just based on his second half against City, I think he's probably done just enough for Ange to justify just keeping him in. And I also think that Ange isn't going to want to take him out after that mistake in a weird way. If he just had a poor game without that mistake, I think he might be thinking more about taking him out. But because he improved in the second half, and then he made a mistake doing what Ange probably wants him to do, which is be confident in the ball and be confident to try something, even if it's in a dangerous position, have the confidence that you can pull it off. I think he's going to want to not send out a message to say that you're playing, even though you're playing poor, but to say like, I'm not going to take you out just for trying something, if you know what I mean. So I think based on that, I'm going to keep Bissouma in.
But that's what I'm saying. There's a lot more going on than just that mistake with Bissouma at the moment.
But I think he had I thought he had a pretty good second half, apart from that mistake against City, in my opinion.
It was better, but I don't think it was good, in my opinion. I think it was better, and better from terrible is just about okay. But I'm looking at the string of performances. I'm not just looking at that Man City game. And you got to say, he's not performing well at the moment for the last 5 games or whatever it's been, 4 games.
Yeah, he's not been great. I think he was not. I don't think he was okay against. I think it was good in that second half against City. I did. I thought it wasn't at his best, but he definitely. I think he was playing pretty well. But he did have that mistake, so that obviously comes into it. I just think I want to continue it for this game. I do. I think we're better off having Bissouma in the team and pursuing with him rather than putting Højbjerg in. But I agree with you. There's definitely a good case to put Højbjerg in because he's been in better form. But also, I don't think Højbjerg's been amazing. I think he's been good. But even Højbjerg playing well versus Bissouma not as well, it's still those are fairly similar levels in my opinion. If Bissouma was playing how Højbjerg was playing, people would probably be saying he's playing poor because of what we know Bissouma can do. So based on that, I'm still going to stick with Bissouma.
But we just, regardless of this whole conversation, we just need Bissouma to get back to those levels that he was at the first 10 games of the season, because he was unplayable. When he's in that mood, when he's in that form, there's not many midfielders in the Premier League that can match up to him, right? At the beginning of the season, we were going on about Bissouma, Declan Rice and all that. Declan Rice has kicked on from there, and he's probably been the best performer in the Premier League this season, in my opinion. Bissouma has regressed, and we need to get him back to those levels.
100%.
That's just what it comes down to.
That's right.
But anyway, let's go on to the predictions and how you think the game is going to go.
Yeah, I'm going to go 3-1 Spurs. I think we're going to dominate. I think hopefully if we have an unchanged lineup, I do see us creating chances. I do see us opening up West Ham. And I think it's going to be very difficult for them to live with us. I think they're going to let us play our football in a way, like let us dominate the ball, I should say. They're not going to press too high, I don't think. And that's going to allow us to progress the ball up the pitch. And it might not be very easy to create chances, but I think if we play like we did against Villa, I think we can create enough chances to open them up and take a lead. And then from then on, obviously West Ham's game plan will be probably to stick in there and, maybe go for it later in the game. But I'm just banking on our ability to create chances in this system. West Ham's, how they like to play, might play into our hands a bit in terms of allowing us to progress the ball at the pitch. But they're obviously a threat on the counter. They've got really good quality players, so I don't think we'll keep a clean sheet. But I do think we will get goals in this game, so I'm going 3-1 Spurs.
3-1 Spurs. Yeah, I mean, I said in the predictions that we did, I said 2-0 to Spurs, but I do see us conceding, to be fair. I think West Ham are going to up their game, raise their game a little bit, as they always do when they come here. So I do think we're going to win the game. I do think we're going to create a lot of chances. But I think it's going to be a crazy game of football like we have seen the last couple of weeks. So I'm actually going to go 3-2 to Spurs. I think a lot of goals. I think we might go ahead early and it will work in our favour a little bit, but then it's going to force West Ham to come out and ask us a few questions. So I think with the likes of Jarrod Bowen, Mohamed Kudus, Lucas Paquetá, the threats of James Ward-Prowse and Thomas Souček, I think they can, break our defensive line a little bit with the frailties that we do have there at the back with Ben Davies, not the greatest aerial threat. So I am worried going into it in terms of the set piece threat that they do have and what James Ward-Prowse can pick. He can pick a lock just like that with a wonder of a foot he does have. So I do think we win this game. I think it's going to be a crazy atmosphere, but I think it's time to get back to winning ways and it's time to hammer those hammers on Thursday night. So That is our prediction. That is our match preview. But before we get into the predicted lineup, I'm seeing all these comments saying, Ben, you got a problem with Bissouma and all this kind of stuff. I absolutely love Yves Bissouma.
You have an agenda against Bissouma.
I absolutely love Bissouma. But I think you got to call a spade for what it is at the moment. And he's not playing well. That's just essentially what it is. And I want to see when you're not playing well, either you play yourself back into form or you come out of the team for a game or two and you put whoever's playing better into the team. That's why you have a squad.
Disgusting. Disgusting agenda. Horrible.
Agenda against Yves Bissouma.
I hope
you got.
Bissouma's not watching this because he'd be fuming.
Bissouma, if you are watching this, I love you, but you need to get back into form. But let's get into the predicted lineup and let's start off with the injury news. So what have we got?
What don't we have? So obviously Sarr is still out for this game, although Ange did say in good news he should be back for the game on Sunday against Newcastle. Richarlison is available again. He obviously came on in the last 5 minutes against City. He said he is available, but he's probably only going to be available again late in the game if we need him, so I don't expect him to start in this one. But then obviously Perisic, Solomon, Session van der Ven, Bentancur, Dyer, still long terms. He did have something to tell Maddison, because Maddison obviously was speaking to Amazon about his injury, saying, it's a slow burner and it could, he could be out for 3 months. But Ange said, he said something funny. He said, Maddison's not a doctor, he's not a medic, so I wouldn't trust completely what he says on the injury. And
I'm sure he does speak to the medics.
He said as far as he knows, Maddison's progressing very well. So we'll see when he's back, and maybe Maddison's being pessimistic about it. But he's obviously not going to be fit for this game. We know that for sure.
All right. So look, I think in terms of the injuries and in terms of our frailties at the back, I think the worst is over now. I do think the worst is over with Cuti Romero coming back in the side. Yes, we're going to lose a few players in January as well, but they're not players in the back line. So I think that will put us in good stead for sure. But going into the predicted lineup, in goal is obviously going to be Venom Vicario, who in my opinion has been the best goalkeeper in the league this season. Yeah,
and he's also, in this game, set pieces is going to be massive, and he's going to have to be very commanding and relieve the pressure when he can in those situations. But I think he's been in good form. I think he's playing well at the moment, so hope that continues.
So Venom in goal, right back Pedro Porro, who I actually think these two players on screen right now have probably been our most consistent performers this season.
Yeah, I don't think he's had a bad game, Porro, and I've said it as well. I think when it comes to playing out the back and beating the press and the way we like to build up from the back, I just think he's our best player in the back line for it. He finds so many good creative solutions. He's not scared to play a long pass and into the centre, and he's got quality to do it as well. It makes so much difference when he's there on the ball compared to an Emerson in terms of just building up for the back and finding a creative solution. Obviously his set pieces, he's probably going to be taking set pieces in this game as well. That could be vital, but I'm being really happy with Porro. And even before the Man City game, we were doing the panel and people still complaining about his defending. I'm just thinking, what are people watching? Because he just hasn't been a liability defensively this season. He's actually been really solid, and I thought he showed that again against Doku on Sunday. I thought he had a really good game again, so being so happy with Porro.
Porro can probably go home every night and just take all the left wingers out of his pocket every night, and he puts them on his mantelpiece and say, look, I pocketed you. He's been absolutely brilliant. So let's move on to right centre back, and a very welcome return to Cuti Romero. And how much of a difference is he going to make?
I think it'll be a massive difference, but the difference between having him and Emerson is gigantic. I think from all facets. I think from playing out the back, he's a lot more confident. There's a lot more quality when he does it. Romero, I think defensively, he's a lot more proactive. And I think as well, Van der Ven spoke about, and Porro, I think, spoke about how much of a leader he's become in the backline this season. And that's definitely something we've lacked over the past few games. I feel like there has been a voice in that centre-back shouting, making sure people are doing their jobs and all those different things. And the communication, there's been a big issue between Emerson and Davis at the back, them not talking to each other, them not identifying the threats where they are. It's led to, the second goal against Villa, where no one went close to him, against City.
Countless amounts of chances, yeah.
Foden's just walks into the box with no one tracking him. So hopefully Romero can go some way to stopping those kind of things happening. Obviously, we're still no Van de Ven, so we're not going to have that recovery pace still. But having that proactive defensive nature Romero has and that leadership, I really think is going to make a big difference.
Yeah, on the left-hand side of defence, obviously Ben Davies. And for everyone, that had worries about Ben Davies coming in, I actually think he's come in and done a stellar job.
I think he's done well. I think he's done really well. And I think he's had his issues. I think Watkins bullied him on a few occasions. I think that he had issues there. Against City, I think the defence as well had issues. I don't think him particularly was any more at fault than anyone else, to be fair. And he did also show he's got his physical side for that second goal, for Lo Celso's goal, when he steps in ahead of Haaland and wins a duel against him. So
he kind of did drop deep though too early. Was it for Foden's goal and he was just keeping everyone on side? Was it Foden's goal? I can't remember.
I don't think that was his. Anyway, I have to analyse the goal again. I don't think that was his fault completely, but he's not been perfect. But I think he's done a much better job than people may have expected. No Antonio as well in this game. I think is going to be massively beneficial to him, because I think that's the biggest problem he has at centre back, is playing against really physical strikers, and he's not going to have that to deal with. So I think if it's a choice between keeping Davies or Emerson at centre back, we're going to go with Davies. And I think as well, playing out the back, he's been pretty decent as well. So I'm happy to stick with Davies in this one.
And then to make up that back four on the left-hand side, Destiny Udogie, whose physical presence is massive for us in this game.
Yeah, he's definitely going to have some worries up against probably Kudus, or could even be Bowen on that side, depending on who plays where. But if we're going to assume it's Kudus, obviously very good one-on-one defender, very physical as well. He's had a lot of challenges this season, and by and large, he's dealt with them pretty well. But I do think it's going to be another one. But hopefully he asks Kudus more questions than Kudus asks him. And hopefully, if we play our game, it means Udogie is going to be getting in all sorts of spaces, and Kudus isn't going to track him back. I don't know how Kudus is off the ball, but that's not something I haven't really identified. But if he's not on his game, then hopefully he could lead to Udogie getting in all sorts of spaces.
He's got previous against West Ham, didn't he, Udogie, in the pre-season?
Scored in the pre-season with a header as well.
And his first game, wasn't it?
Yeah, he did.
But let's run through that back line with you guys one more time. Vicario in goal, Pedro Porro right back, Destiny Udogie left back, Cuti Romero and Ben Davies in the centre-back positions. Now, who are we going to put in the number 6? We're going to put in Yves Bissouma.
Oh, the agenda. The agenda. Yeah, we're going to stick with Bissouma. We think he's probably going to stay in the team for this game. I do think our best chance of winning is having a Bissouma at his best. And so to do that, he's going to have to be playing. So we think Bissouma is going to start. And you also got to remember last few games, I don't know how much of an impact not having a centre-back behind him as well would have had on him. Maybe he felt he needs to be a bit deeper and all that kind of stuff as well. You've got to take that into account. So hopefully Bissouma's getting back to his best in this one. He's going to be up against some really solid central midfielders, Paquetá, Ward-Prowse, Edson Alvarez. He's going to have to be strong, but I'm backing him to get back to his best in this one.
Yeah. So Bissouma in the number 6. Let's look at the other two midfielders now. First one we're going to look at is Dejan Kulusevski, who's just been incredible in these last 2 games. He really has stepped it up tenfold from what he's shown this season, which he already was having a strong season. But I think since moving into that middle of the park, we're really starting to see the best of him now, aren't we? Yeah.
The only question mark really is if Højbjerg comes in maybe in that role, in my opinion, because he did that in the second half. He put Kulusevski back out wide and he had Højbjerg in the centre. But if we're going, I'm going to go with what we want to see, and I think Kulusevski playing central midfield like he did in the first 45 against City and like he did for the majority of the game against Villa, I think that's going to be our best avenue to just asking as many questions as possible against West Ham. You could argue him in the centre, are we going to get overrun? Are we going to get bullied? That's a risk you're going to have to take. I'm backing on his physicality not to do that and him to stand up to those challenges and be able to compete with them. But that's the risk that you run when you're playing against some really solid centre mids that West Ham have.
Yeah, I don't think we get overrun with Kulu in the middle. I just think like you said, like that physical presence he has, I think will stand us in massive stead. And as well with his partner, we're going to go on the left-hand side with Giovanni Lo Celso. Again, he's been a bit of revelation in these last 2 games coming in. No one really gave him a chance, to be honest, with after that Fulham Carabao Cup game. Everyone was ready to throw him by the wayside, and obviously the troubles that he has had since joining Tottenham. But he's filled that void that Maddison has left quite well in the last 2 games.
Yeah, doing so well. 2 goals in 2 games and 2 really good performances as well. Obviously, I think he has been taken off in both games around the 75th minute mark. Yeah. So maybe that's a consequence of the amount of game time he's had so far this season. Maybe he's still finding complete match fitness, which is surprise even given how well he's played. But I'm really liking his performances. He's adding that little bit of imagination and creativity in the middle that we were missing since Maddison's gone. That bit of creative passing as well. But what I really like him is his ability to always look forward, always be progressive, always be positive, which is something that definitely when, for example, in the Wolves performance when we had no technicians in the centre, it's something we definitely lacked and definitely was at the detriment to us. So I'm really excited to see Gio, how he goes again, and hopefully he has another good performance.
Yeah, and that was a kind of mistake that Ange made in that Wolves game of not having Lo Celso probably in the team because we had no creativity whatsoever. And it's good with Ange because he always, whenever he does make a mistake or whenever things aren't going right, he puts it right. And he did that the next game, putting Gio back in. So credit to him. But that's a midfield of Bissouma, Kulusevski and Giovanni Lo Celso. On the right-hand side, we're going to go for Brennan Johnson, who I think, he's performed well for Spurs so far, but I feel like he's growing as a Spurs player at the moment. And game on game, you feel like he's getting more integrated in the team.
Definitely has a feeling of more to come for Johnson. There's been like spurts of really good stuff. And what I would say is as well, last couple of games when he started on the right, he's given Digne a very difficult time in that first half. He gave Gvardiol a few troubles as well. And I think those 2 left-backs are much better defensively than Emerson is. So I think he's really going to be licking his lips when he comes up against Emerson going on the outside. I think he's much quicker than him. And I think he's going to have a good opportunity to really take him to the cleaners. But he's obviously struggled a bit when it comes to his fitness. But then again, 90th minute, got an assist in the City game with getting half a yard off Kyle Walker as well. So maybe that's something that's improving for him as well. I would like to see him start on the right. I think that's going to be where he's his most effective. And I think he's got a really good chance here of causing West Ham a lot of trouble.
Yeah. So Johnson on the right. Up front is obviously going to be the main man, the captain, the leader, Heung-min Son, who on top of that has a great record against West Ham. I
think it's 3 home games in a row he scored against West Ham at the Tottenham Stadium as well. So definitely has a good record. Obviously, these kind of games are a bit more difficult for Son than maybe even games against like City or the bigger games, because in the bigger games, Son likes to play in that space. And these games, the space isn't going to be as easy to find. But I think definitely this season he's showing signs of adding more bows to his game, being more of a team player, being better with his back to goal and bringing teammates into the game. And that's the real benefit of what I'm seeing from Son. And as well, he's showing signs of he can be that striker even in congested areas, can find finishes and can find solutions. So I do envisage it not being the easiest game for Son, but I think the form he's in and how he's playing, I think he can still have a very good game.
Yeah, I have no doubt about that. And then to make up the final 11 on the left-hand side, we are going to go for Bryan Hill. Ange did mention that Richarlison ain't quite ready yet to start, only will have limited minutes in this game. So there is, after the team that we have picked, only real one option.
Yeah, we're going to go with Bryan Hill. Obviously, the only other option, because obviously Bryan Hill went off at half-time again. City didn't have the best game in that one, had a very difficult task of taking on Kyle Walker. And I think maybe Ange just realised he wasn't up to it in that game. But the only other option is maybe putting Johnson on the left, Kula on the right, putting Højbjerg in, because that's what we played in the second half against City and had a really good game. But I'm going to back Ange to continue with what he saw against Villa in that game. And that means keeping Bryan Hill in the team, and hopefully when coming up against someone like Soufal, he's going to have a lot more opportunities to get at him and have a lot more joy than he was against Walker. And I think as well, it's good to just give another opportunity to prove himself, because I think he's not been great over the past 2 games, but I do think he's shown enough not to say he's like been that bad that he can never start again or anything like that. So I think he has shown enough to like get another opportunity. So even against City, it wasn't a great half for him. There was still some good things there. He was involved in the first goal. He did that really good interception, half the pitch that nearly created a chance. Like he did some good things. So
in the first 10 minutes when we were on top, he was actually keeping the ball really well.
So I want to give another opportunity, so we're going to keep Hill in the team.
Yeah, and also what it gives us is it gives us a left footer on the left, a right footer on the right. We can spread the pitch even wider than maybe we do when Kulu is on that right-hand side because he always likes to tuck in. And what we know about Ange Postecoglou, he likes his wingers to be very wide, which we haven't really seen on a consistent basis for Spurs yet. So it maybe gives us that tactics that Ange likes to play, really.
And I think even against a team like West Ham, who do like to play narrow, it's even more important to do that.
Yeah. All right, let's run through that predicted lineup with you guys one more time. So that's Vicario in goal, Pedro Porro right back, Destiny Udogie left back, Romero and Davis in the centre back positions, Bissouma, Lo Celso, Kulusevski in the midfield with Brian Hill and Brennan Johnson supporting Heung-min Son. We've given our predictions in the preview. Sim has gone for 3-1. I have gone for 3-2 to Tottenham Hotspur. So very much looking forward to the game tomorrow night. Me and Sim will both be in the stadium getting all the action for you guys. I'm very much looking forward to tomorrow night. I think it's going to be a feisty atmosphere at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. You got Barnaby and Ashmatic here in the studio for the watch along, so come and join them for that. But yeah, that is our predicted lineup. Just before we end the show, we've got a super chat to get through. And this is from Evan Burns saying, do you think it's possible that Cuti Romero gets a card or a suspension due to it being at London Derby and tensions will be high? Much love. I mean, there's every chance of it, isn't there?
Oh, definitely a card, that's for sure. I never, even if it's not a London Derby, there's always a chance of Cuti getting a card. But then again, I know he got that red card against Chelsea and he had a bit of a shocker in that one. But I think it's like everyone's forgotten the first 10 games where like he didn't barely put a foot wrong, barely made a foul even, and was near perfect for those 10 games. It's like one game and everyone just goes back to the narrative of Romero, hothead, all that kind of stuff. And obviously the player he is, that's always going to be there. But I don't think you can just chuck away his first 10 performances based off one game like some people have.
Yeah, totally right. And with that red card that he did get against Chelsea, I swear to God I saw the same thing in the Arsenal game last night. The exact same thing.
The only difference was Enzo's foot was planted and Andros had his foot in the air, so you could argue it was probably less dangerous because of the opposition. But in terms of the challenge, it was an identical challenge.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. Not even a yellow card.
Yeah. So that's the inconsistency for you.
Yeah. I don't know. These refs are winding me up on a weekly basis, to be fair. Fed up of talking about them. But look, that is your match preview stream. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Ange Postecoglou's press conference is live on the channel right now, so go and check that out. Some interesting words said about Dorrington as well in that press conference, saying that he might be getting a chance in the coming weeks with a lot of games coming thick and fast. Do you reckon that's instead of Ben Davis again? Romero, probably. Dorrington centre-backs?
Probably. I would say so, because I think if you're going to give Dorrington a chance, it's only fair to put him next to Romero, I would say.
Well, to be fair, what he's banking on is probably Destiny Udogie to get a yellow card, because if he does get a yellow card, Ben Davis will have to be pushed over to left back and Dorrington will be at left centre-back.
That's another good point. I wonder if, I'm just looking at the calendar, I'm just thinking what would be the best game to maybe give him an opportunity, like the safest game.
Whenever Udogie is suspended for.
Because, like, you know,
I think it's going to be out of our hands.
Yeah, probably right about that. All right.
But that is, just one more question. Lollipop is dying to know what our Nando's orders are.
Nando's? I like the Sunset Burger.
Oh, you get a burger when you go to Nando's?
I like a Sunset Burger. Yeah.
I'm a burger enthusiast, but when I go to Nando's, I don't really get a burger. I usually just like to get the old classic chicken.
The butterflies.
Either chicken butterfly or maybe like a quarter or half chicken, however how hungry I am, with nice hot spice.
The butterflies are decent as well.
Yeah, butterflies are decent. But Lollipop, let us know your Nando's order in the comment section below. But that is it from us today. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Like, subscribe, and comment. And as always, come on, you Spurs.